I survived my birth mother's D&E abortion that aborted my twin next to me, and I've always wondered what my twin actually experienced.
They would feel everything as far as being pulled apart.
In this video, abortion providers meet abortion survivors face to face. Let's take a look at this.
Can you each share briefly how many abortions that you were involved with and the kinds of abortion procedures that you performed?
It's hard to know because I never counted, but I went through it with one of the residents who did the same clinic I did, and we figured out I probably did 500. I not only did first trimester abortions, but I went outside my program to learn how to do dismemberment abortions.
What were the ages of the dismemberment abortions that you did, the ages of the children?
I think they might have gone up as high as 24 weeks, but I'm not really sure. I know they were good-sized babies, and as awful as it sounds, it was sort of like the technical challenge, and the bigger the better. It's hard to say that now, but that was the truth.
What was it like for you to do those abortions?
I was so focused on helping the woman. Even as I counted the body parts, I did not see them as human. I didn't see them as people. It was just the procedure, the woman on the table. That was my focus, helping her, and I somehow was able to totally black out that child. I tried so hard to make this really painful procedure less painful for my patient. I never even considered what that baby was feeling, and we now know that they feel pain, and I just can't imagine the excruciating pain that they suffered at my hand.
Between June of 1980 and February of 1985, in private practice, I performed just under 1,200 abortions. About 10% of them, or 124 of them, were second trimester D&E dismemberment abortions.
And the rest, were they first trimester abortions?
Yes.
Did either of you ever know anyone or get involved with yourself with saline abortions?
I did saline abortions during my training as a resident. If patients were late 70s, technology was different. If patients were 13 weeks from last menstrual period or less, we did the suction DNCs in the delivery room of all places. And if they were more than 13 weeks, we'd make them wait till they're about 16 or 17 weeks and then bring them back for saline abortion procedures.
What was it like when you were doing saline abortions? Can you describe what the experience was and what happened during those abortions?
The procedure is to, in amniocentesis, put a needle into the uterus, into the amniotic sac, draw as much of the amniotic fluid out as possible, and then substitute 20% salt solution. These women had to go through labor. I mean, the salt solution would burn the babies, and when they died, it would release prostaglandins and initiated labor. So these women had to go through labor. It was anywhere from, I saw them run anywhere between 8 and 36 hours between the time we did the saline injections and the babies were delivered. I never had a live birth with that procedure, although it was possible. It's just a horrific procedure, especially for patients, going through the abortion at all and then being through in labor that long. And that was why when D&E abortions were developed in the early 80s, my partner and I jumped on the bandwagon because we saw it as a far better procedure than the saline.
What did the babies look like after a saline abortion, and what were usually the ages of the babies?
They were 16 weeks and up, typically up to around, as I recall, maybe 21 or 22 weeks. We could do them later, but that in my hospital needed special approval, so we didn't get very many of those. The babies were intact, they were dead, but you could see where the skin was macerated or burned from the chemicals.
Claire and Melissa, you both have survived abortion attempts. Can you start, Melissa, first by sharing your story about the abortion attempt that you survived?
Yeah, as we're talking about saline abortions, that's who I am. So my medical records reflected my birth mother was between 18 and 20 weeks pregnant when a saline infusion abortion was forced upon her against her will, bypassing hospital regulations at that time. But through my medical records, we now know that she was probably more like 31 weeks when that abortion was performed. I soaked in that toxic salt solution. My birth mother experienced that over a 5-day period. And the belief, of course, was that it would successfully end my life. But the fear then became that she was going to lose hers in it because it was taking so long. So on the 5th day of the abortion procedure, I was finally expelled from the womb, delivered at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa, not because they were intending for me to be born alive and they would provide me medical care, but simply because that's where that late-term abortion was being performed. And the day that I now celebrate as my birthday is the day that I was accidentally born alive. And I think that's one of those things that people in our world take for granted, that it is a privilege for people to have a birthday. It shouldn't be. But what's the difference between the three of you and Claire and I? Why is it the day that we were accidentally born?
Claire, what kind of abortion procedure did you survive?
My birth mother was taken to have an abortion at 20 weeks, and she had a dismemberment, D&E abortion, and she was told that it was successful, that she could go home and go back to her normal life, but she went home and realized that things weren't right, and she was home for about 4 weeks, went back to the doctor, and they told her that she had been leaking amniotic fluid and that her abortion had been successful on one baby, but that I had survived her D&E abortion. And I was born just a few weeks later. I was born 10 weeks premature. I weighed 3 pounds. I had a dislocated hip and I had club feet. And she had a dry birth, and so she was told that those complications were due to that and due to the abortion.
Claire, what is it like hearing Dr. Altman and Dr. Levatino, both of them having been involved with D&E abortions? What is that like hearing about that?
It's hard. I mean, it's hard for me to hear that the humanity of my twin was not recognized as you pieced babies' bodies back together. Because I know, like you said, at 20 weeks, that my twin must have felt something. And I mean, it makes me wonder. I've always wanted to ask a former abortionist, like, what would my birth mother have experienced during her abortion that successfully aborted my twin? Because she said it was incredibly painful and incredibly hard.
A lot of pain. It's, you know, there's no anesthesia to the, unless you're under general, there's no real anesthesia to the body of the uterus, just the cervix. And you're going in and out and pushing and pulling, and they're cramping, and you know, it's very painful.
Yeah, a little different in my experience. We would do suction DNCs up to 10 weeks in the office, but beyond that, we would be in a hospital. That was at the time. I know that's not the way it's usually done now. I think it's insane not having a patient be in a proper environment because complications can occur with D&E abortions. So my patients were anesthetized doing D&E abortions, and they would not have gone through that. On the other hand, I always tell my medical students a story about doing a D&E, and this is why I know these are done in freestanding clinics, and I personally can't picture it. I had the experience of doing an 18-week D&E, and you know, you're using the instruments to pull out arms and legs, but instead of arms and legs, I got the lady's intestines in my clamp. The uterus had been perforated, the intestine got grabbed and pulled all the way through the uterus to the outside. But I've got my patient, and this is why we did it in a hospital as a safety measure. This patient is in a sterile environment, anesthetized, get a surgeon, fix the bowel, complete the abortion, and she did okay. So I can't even picture doing it outside of a hospital environment personally.
We were in an office doing those. I never had any of those complications. But when I was on call later, after stopping abortions, we had a woman come into the emergency room with her bowel hanging from her vagina. They were concerned that she wouldn't live.
Did either of you ever have an incomplete abortion, to your knowledge?
Yes. Certainly in my training I did. I'm trying to think of all the abortions I did once I was an attending. I have to imagine I had a handful, but not very many if I did, because I was getting very good at it at that point. But definitely, certainly in my training I did.
What happened in that training experience with the incomplete abortion?
In the particular one I'm thinking of, I had done a suction DNC on a patient, and everything seemed to be fine. And a day or two later, I got a call from the chairman of the department telling me that this woman was sitting home watching TV when she literally dropped out of her baby's arm on the couch or something, and obviously had a pretty severe reaction to that. And we brought her in and completed the abortion.
Melissa, you endured a saline abortion. Dr. Levatino, early on in his practice, was involved with saline abortions. Do you have any questions for Dr. Levatino?
One of the commentaries I hear often from survivors and women that we serve at the Abortion Survivors Network is that they aren't provided a proper exam. And I know in my birth mother's experience, that's what she experienced as well. The abortionist did not provide an adequate exam to know how far along she truly was. So I'm curious, Dr. Levatino, what your feedback to my abortionist would be.
I'm listening to your abortion story about your mom was projected to be, what, 18 or 19 weeks pregnant, and she was actually 31. And this is a medical term that is not complimentary. What kind of barber doesn't know the difference between a 19-week and a 31-week pregnancy? I can't even imagine that. And again, I teach medical students, and I try to impress on them several things. First, they are not agents of the state. The other thing, too, is that it is incredibly important to understand exactly what the gestational age of your patient is before you start an abortion procedure. And again, we weren't running a freestanding abortion clinic. This was my office. And it's different in that case. If you want to have your baby, that's great. If you want to have an abortion, that's fine. We knew that it was so important never to be caught in a situation where you had a gestational age that you didn't know for sure. We did ultrasounds on every single one of our abortion patients. And we had an ultrasound machine in the office. We did not charge them for those ultrasounds. That was part of our evaluation, make sure we never got in that situation. And it troubles me now when I hear about, this is a little more far afield, but I've got to say it. I mean, I hear now about medical abortion or chemical abortion being done with internet websites where your contact with the patient is limited to either a video chat or text. How in the name of anyone can you determine gestational age by just talking to somebody? She'll give you her last menstrual period if she knows it. But you cannot adequately determine gestational age on video chat. You cannot tell if a patient may be carrying an ectopic pregnancy on a video chat. This is dangerous, and this is being promoted.
You know, the most impactful statement that I heard from this gut-wrenching segment, just to hear from these abortion providers and abortion survivors. You know, the lady, Melissa Oden, who I've met before, we spoke at an event together, surviving a saline abortion. These words right here just hit me to my heart when she said, "The day I now celebrate as my birthday is the day I accidentally was born alive." Just think about that. The day that she now celebrates as her birthday is the day that she overcame all odds and survived a botched abortion. You know, these kinds of conversations can bring up a great deal of sentiments and feelings. If you're a person who's watching this right now And maybe if you've had a abortion in your past, I'm sure that you are rehearsing and reliving the tragedy of what took place when you took your baby's life. But there's hope. There's hope for you. You don't have to just rest and wallow in the past and what you did. You can ask God for forgiveness, and He's faithful and just to forgive and to cover you for that deed. He will. And you don't have to hold that mental anguish upon your mind, upon your psyche for the rest of your days. You can relinquish that and let that go. But this only takes place at the foot of the cross. Let me tell you this. Psalm 139, verses 13 through 15 says this: "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place." What's the secret place? In his mother's womb. "When I was woven together in the depths of the earth." Proverbs 24:11 through 12 says this: "Rescue those being led away to death." That's our job. We are supposed to do everything we possibly can within reason to save babies who are being led away to death. Hold back those staggering toward slaughter. Convince those who are coming up with these ideologies that abortion is the best way out and abortion is the best method. And if you are young and in college, abortion is the only way out. Or if you're concerned that your baby will be disenfranchised because you don't have the resources, the Bible says that we should hold back those individuals staggering toward the slaughter. Hold them back. Convince them, persuade them, encourage them. How about this? Pray for them and support them. Be the hands and the feet of Jesus. Right? Write a check. Let them know that you will stand in the gap, that you will get in the ditch with them. Be that good Samaritan and help that person. It also says in verse 12, "If you say, but we know nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it?" If you act as if you don't know the tragic truth of abortion, you know, the leading cause of death in our country is not tragic accidents. It's not heart disease. It's not cancer. It wasn't the novel coronavirus or anything like that. No, the leading cause of death in our country is abortion. And if you say that you don't know anything about this, the Bible says, doesn't God know that you're lying because He knows your heart? Then it says, does not He who guards your life know it? Doesn't the God that's keeping you alive know that you are being untruthful when you say that you are not aware of this slaughter? Will He not repay everyone according to what they have done? That goes for the abortion provider. That goes for the mother. It goes for the inept father. And it also goes for those who sit back in the seat of neutrality and say nothing about this heinous injustice. It goes for those people as well. Think about this, ponder it, that God will hold you accountable for not doing anything about this Holocaust. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode. Stick around and watch another video. Like, share, and subscribe to my page. God bless you.